Want to welcome everybody tonight, and Chief, would you lead?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Julie, could you do roll call, please?
Councilmember Skinner.
Let's speak up.
Are you here?
I'm here.
Councilmember Wynn.
Here.
Councilmember Spargo.
Here.
And Councilmembers Collette and Ansich are not here. Councilmember Ansich will be running late today. But we will need a motion to excuse for Councilmember Collette.
Motion to excuse?
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed. Tonight, on the agenda, it states public comment. So we had discussion before the council meeting tonight. So the public comment is not a question and answer session. It's a public comment. We will be holding a special meeting for our regular council meeting next week, where we'll have a public comment and a Q&A for citizens. If you have questions and if you invited tonight, what I would encourage you to do, all of our department heads are here. Please reach out to them, set up an appointment or time to meet with them. They have the knowledge and the information that would probably address your question better than something you may be seeing out on Facebook or Hearsay. So please reach out to them and ask a question if we don't get it answered during this special meeting tonight. Thank you. So, any public comments at this
Not
time?
yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Approval of agenda.
Approval of agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, public comments. I see no public comments, so we'll move on. So we're going to go to new business, and Chief Lehman, would you like to speak to this?
I would. City of Westport interlocal agreement is no longer occurring. It was something we were approached and asked about a while back. It looked like an opportunity to try to buy us time to not have to lay off an officer. It would have taken us down to 4 instead of 5, but it wouldn't have caused us to lose the officer. Knowing that it cost in excess of $110,000 to hire and train and get an officer on board, we were exploring those options, and that was what I brought to you guys. New mayor at the city of Westport chose that at this time it wasn't something that they were interested in pursuing, so that issue is done. So it's no more.
So you don't have to do this.
Okay, so moving on to the City of Oakville interlocal agreement. Chief?
City of Oakville interlocal agreement, just want to make sure it's very clear that we are not entering into an agreement at this time. This was to start a discussion with you and see if it's something you're even interested in us in pursuing. We had some discussions with the City of Oakville just to kind of see what that would even look like. So we're not entering in agreement. I'm not asking you to look at this agreement tonight and say, yes, we're doing this and sign off on it and enter into it. It's not even been written or approved by our city attorney at this point. So this is just to make sure you know where we were going with looking for solutions. On its face value, it seems pretty intimidating, and it looks like we're going to be taking on these big new expenses and losing an officer. And I understand those concerns, but the reality of things would be that instead of being down to 4 officers, it would take us down to about 4.5 officers. So it would allow us to retain him, allow some of his hours. And would it spread us a little bit more thin? Absolutely, but not as thin as going down a complete position. Part of the concerns that we have of going down to 4 officers is knowing that there's going to be hours of no coverage in the city. And when I say no coverage, I don't mean nobody's gonna ever respond. It means we're coming from what's called an on-call status. So an officer would have to wake up, get dressed, turn on the car, get the computer going, see the call for service, and be en route. So that's what that would look like. Doing it where we were covering for Oakville, the question that is often asked and has been asked of me is, well, what happens if they're handling a call in Oakville? Well, if it was a priority call that needed it, we would call somebody out, or we would prioritize the call for service of that one can wait, this one needs to go, and we make a choice. Yes, it's 37 miles of driving, but that actually ends up being faster because you got a guy already on duty, already apprised what's going on in his patrol car, ready to rock and roll, as opposed to, again, the scenario of waking up, figuring out what's going on, getting dressed and responding. So there's pros and cons, and part of that decision we would need as a group is decide if those pros outweigh the cons, and then see if they're even interested in and leave an agreement they're in to enter into an agreement with us. We're nowhere as close to a place of we're committing and signing any dotted lines. It's not even in the realm of things we're doing right now. But it was something that I wanted to discuss with you guys to see if this is even something that we continue to entertain and have conversations about. Knowing that I have no idea if they're even going to agree or want to go beyond a conversation with us in the first place. One of the other questions I know was asked of is, well, isn't this gonna cost us a lot more for insurance, or would we even be covered? That's a fair question, and the answer is, per our insurance agent, it wouldn't cost us a penny extra and we already would be covered. So there isn't an extra expense there. So, and Darren, you can chime in for it if you want there, but he even communicated us via email to confirm that through our insurance carrier. So Shane Heston, I believe, is
Yes,
who we were talking about.
Chief Lehman did contact our insurance carrier, and he did send us an email that did state exactly what the chief said, so there would be no change in cost or liability to us.
One of the other hurdles that we'd be looking at is wear and tear in a car and extra fuel expenses. And that's also a very fair question, and that was part of what we started the conversation with, is that would be built into the expense of the monthly service charge that we give them. So basically, they'd be paying for the wear and tear and expenses of one car, and that's where that discussion went. So those are kind of where we're at with it, and that is why I wanted to have that discussion with you and to get your guidance of, this is dead, don't do it, or yeah, keep talking about it and we'll figure some stuff out and see if anybody else wants to talk about it. So that is the extent of that agreement. And again, I'm not asking you to make any decisions or make any movement on it tonight, other than, do you even want us to be looking at this? Anything I forgot, Darren, that you want me to discuss?
No, I think that covers it.
It does. So, we will, so are you clear why, the council, my question to the council, are you clear why the chief has been working very, very hard on trying to retain an officer for this community? And are you clear on that? And there will be more discussion. So to continue to work toward that, do we have a motion from the council? Or any?
A motion to continue to pursue an interlocal agreement with the city of Oakville for the purposes of collecting more information. I second that.
Any discussion?
I have several concerns, and I know it's just, the start of the process, so several of those might get, weeded out as you're working it out. But no matter what the circumstances are, we've been staffed with 3 officers before, we've been staffed with 4, we are now at 5. And to possibly lose one to a 42-minute drive one way when you're doing 60 miles an hour, that's 84 minutes round trip. And I know wear and tear on vehicles, when they're cranking at 70, 80 miles an hour with lights on, that's even more wear and tear. I just can't support it. I'm sorry, Chief. So
That's fine.
I have to vote nay on this one.
All in favor?
I'd like some more discussion, please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just want to say to the chief that I appreciate the really creative, and I don't mean I come from the South, creative is sometimes used as an insult. I genuinely mean, I appreciate the creativity and trying to, you know, address the concerns about, our city staffing. And
Joni, could you speak up, please?
yeah, sorry about that. Chief, just wanted to commend you on the creative approach to trying to resolve some of our staffing concerns. I certainly don't see any harm in at least pursuing the possibility and getting some more information before we entertain a decision.
I concur with Councilman Wynn. I don't think there's any problem with us going forward with this. You're putting the time in and you've made every effort possible to try to save this position, and I commend you for that. And if a few more hours of work can come to some kind of an agreement, I think it's well worth the time.
Any further discussion? All of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed?
Opposed.
So passed.
Yeah, so passed. 2/3 vote, is that what it takes, or just simple majority?
Simple majority.
Yeah, for this kind of motion,
Oh,
just a simple majority.
Okay, thank you. We're all learning, so be patient with us. So we're moving on to the 2024 council meeting location. John, would you speak to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you know, construction on the new facility has began. It's temporarily shut down until we get more, better weather to work on it, probably in April is what we're thinking. But during the construction period, we would like to move our meetings over into the public safety building to where, one, we have better room, and two, we won't be disturbed as much as we would be in here. So to do that, we need to pass this ordinance, because it currently says meeting location is in City Hall. We've had special meetings over there in the past, you know, several times over the years, but we do need to have this in ordinance form to be able to go over there.
Steve would need to read the ordinance. You did by title.
This rule is on
Page 9.
hidden in there.
There you go.
Here,
Well, this is the-
here, Steve.
I'll borrow Justin's.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Ordinance number 1391, an ordinance pertaining to city council meetings, amending section 2.04.010 of the Cosmopolis Municipal Code.
Do we have a motion on this?
I have a motion, make a motion to move, amend the ordinance to move our council meetings for a year?
I think it went through,
Well, what this does is basically says that the mayor or any three members of the council, by written notice, at least 24 hours before the time specified for the proposed meeting, can hold it at another city building other than City Hall. So this gives us flexibility going forward overall.
Oh,
So even once the new facility's built, say something else is going on, maybe we wanna hold it in the fire hall versus here or wherever, this would allow us to do so.
okay. My motion is to accept the amendment to the ordinance for the council to hold the council meetings.
Second that.
Do we have any discussion?
I have a question. Do our meetings?
Joni, could you speak up,
Yes.
please? I'm sorry.
I don't know that I can speak up, but I'll sure try.
Okay, I just had the audience.
It's just a challenge in my life, sorry. My question is, does the meeting location set by this ordinance have any implications for online attendance? So, in particular for council members. So if I want to attend a meeting, virtually, yeah,
By state law, you can attend virtually, we have to allow that option,
okay.
which is why we have the OWL. So say a council member wanted to attend virtually, you let me know, I'll send you a panelist invite, and that will access you.
Okay. I don't see how this ordinance would have any relation to that. Okay, thank you.
let's see, any other discussion? And so, please bear with me. I know that we have a procedure to follow, but has this been discussed with the fire department, the chief, and how this works, or do they have anything to add to this?
I think we're good with it, yeah, we knew this was coming
Okay,
with the construction, so.
okay,
We just need to be able to make sure we let them know ahead of time so they can get it on their calendar and make sure it's not conflicting with other training events.
okay.
That was-
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is terminating the landscaping contract. And as all of you know, we're facing some challenging issues moving forward financially, and so we're looking at a number of resources and how are we going to save funds in the future. And so with that said, I'd like the Public Works Director or Superintendent to speak to the contract.
Okay, Monday I was informed that we needed to cut this contract with, our landscaping company. My first, question was why? They do a really good job of what they do, and we need this beautification here. This doesn't affect the general fund whatsoever with what we're trying to come up with right now. So I just sat down and went over what our monthly costs were last year versus what they are this year. I have got several hours into bringing that cost down because of the amount of work they did last year. I really don't even know how they're making money doing it this year. So, for instance, this year's monthly cost for flower beds on First Street, flower beds on Second Street, we're taking over the mowing in these utilities like our main pump station, which is sewer, side of the roads, our streets, things like that. So we've taken that over. They're only doing the flower beds, trimming, brushing, shaping everything all up. This year, monthly cost is $1,524 a month. Yearly cost of that is $18,295. Now this is just the street fund. Last year's monthly cost was $2,178 at a yearly cost of $26,136. This year, just alone in the street fund, by negotiating with them and all the hard work they did there, we're saving $7,800 a month, or a year, I'm sorry, in just the street fund. Again, it's not part of the general fund. We need this. It will cost us way more to do this. We'll go to the cemetery. Same thing with there. Last year, they were $1,470.15 a month, which came to a yearly cost of $17,641. This year, we're down to $980 a month at $11,761. When we did the budget, Julie and I and everybody involved in that talked about the cemetery perpetual care fund. Now that's a limited fund that can only be used at the cemetery for maintenance, repairs, and it has to, for us to use those funds, council has to approve that. There's $66,000 in there. This year, we're only planning on taking out what we have to take out for just that maintenance. Maybe by the end of the year, we won't have to take all of that out. Maybe we'll get some in, but we're covered for the year in cemetery, which is the general fund. So you pretty much have to just take that away. It's gonna be maintained for the year. So really what we're talking about is the street fund and these flower beds. I know there's talk about having volunteers do them. I think it's great, but we can't rely on volunteers to do everything around here. There's a lot of work, these trees are tall. I don't wanna have, older people climbing ladders, cutting these trees down when, shaping them up because they need to be shaped up. Our landscapers are on schedule to be doing that this year. So I encourage this to continue on until we get properly staffed so we could take this over. we've talked about it last year, the year before, we don't want to go and have landscapers do per se our job. But we need the people to be able to do our job as well. So, I know for a fact, we cannot keep the cemetery up for this price, and we cannot keep up these flower beds for this price. So my recommendation is to keep this. It does not, I don't really know why it was put on here, and I would have liked to have a lot of meetings on it to figure out why this was on here, but I was asked to come up with something, and this is what I got. So it's up to council decision. If you guys want to cancel this, we're gonna need a plan B. Who's gonna do this? When is this gonna happen? There's a lot involved, not just canceling a contract. So,
A procedural question.
and another thing I wanna, so I think the reason, well, I do know the reason why part of this street fund was thinking about getting that out of there and maybe help with the officer. You can't do that. And even if you could do that, what that would do to my street fund, we wanna do some road repairs over by the school this year. We've got crack sealing to do, we've got de-icing to do, snow plowing to do, we've got all this, and that's not a big budget. And if I give that budget up and have a parks budget go to that and a street budget go to that, I don't know how I could operate. I can't do these roads that are cracked up, and there's lots involved, the sidewalks, the street sweeping, all that comes out of that same budget. So that's why I think this is a little price to pay to allow us to still continue to do that as well. So if you have any questions, let me.
And I would like to add to that, we did look at this last week. I apologize that you just got this on Monday. And it was to look at helping to fund our officer with further exploring and information. We can't move that. We can't fund that officer. So I just want to add that.
With this fund.
And I'll add to that too, when the discussion came up where we thought some of the road funds could be used for patrol of an officer, because that is done in the county from the county road tax, but that tax comes from property taxes, where this comes from vehicle excise tax, so it is restricted in the 100 funds.
Correct, special revenue fund.
So us versus what a county can do is different. That's why we were at the time thinking, okay, this could potentially be a source, but we still, like Jeff says, then you've got to backfill that somehow. So
then my
there's just.
utilities are gonna take cause then I've got water, sewer, stormwater, utility. Then if I lose all that money in there, then it's gonna put a big old crunch on those ones, as well, cause we're gonna we can't work in the streets, and right now we can't work in the parks. So now I've got 2 out of my 7 budgets I can't work in, because of that. If that would have been able to do that, so.
I think that addresses most of my questions, but just as a procedural question for the future, are we able to have discussion before making a motion? I wouldn't know what motion to make to start having a discussion without being able to ask questions and get information like that.
He's right, there should be a motion on the floor to discuss.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
So is there a motion for discussion and?
We're all new, but before we even get to that point, the Public Works Administrator somebody came to him and says, you gotta look at terminating a contract. There wasn't any motion put on the floor to terminate a contract or to even look at the termination. I understand a group got together and was trying to find means for a new deal. But it's a moot point if we don't do anything. We go through with the contract, because it's in the budget. We have a year for it. Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to take any action.
Any action at all. We just listen, but what we want to do.
So, again, we don't have to take a motion on this at this time. And, this wasn't just for the audience, understanding new council, a new mayor, learning procedures here. We've been coming to the table a lot, looking at this budget, because as you all know, and the city knows, we are facing some very difficult times ahead of us. And so department heads did set, I had a discussion with Jeff, and, apologies, he should have been part of that, but department heads were setting, trying to brainstorm, because we're up against a time frame for this particular officer. And so, Jeff, I appreciate you bringing in all the information this evening, and we'll go ahead and move forward.
I have one more comment, so if we don't, what are we doing with this? Are we gonna leave it open, or are we gonna shut this down? I mean, I would like to eliminate this termination of landscape contract and continue with the landscaping company. So how would we go about that to just eliminate this
Can
from
we do that?
ever getting brought back up? Vote nay on it right now and
Right
just
now,
move
it just
on?
stays open,
Yeah.
so it would just continue on,
Okay.
and it wouldn't come back, and then unless
Unless
you wanted to bring it back, or unless there was another
Okay,
opportunity.
gotcha,
So
I just wanted to see how we go about
It's dead
that.
for lack of motion.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's what it is.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to city administrator pay allocation.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Rain.
And contrary to some of the rumors going around, this is not a raise for the city administrator. What this is taking where my wages are distributed amongst different funds within the city. Some of those are the general fund, where we're hurting the most. Well, my work schedule for 2024, I'm gonna be spending a lot of time on the comprehensive stormwater plan, which is a grant-funded project for both the cities of Hoquiam and Cosmopolis. We are the lead entity on that, so all the funds come through us where we have to administer that. So we wanna take $10,000 of my wages out of the general fund, bill it to the stormwater utility where there are funds available. And then that way, my time, the administrative time, is tracked from that fund. It could be Julie's time too for the billing. We are also looking at additional funds from the Flood Authority and Office of Chehalis Basin to fully fund that project. Right now, we're shy a little bit, so we have an approval up to a maximum of $400,000, which is 100% grant. So if we get additional funds, we are gonna also ask for $10,000 of time or funds to cover my time for admin time. We've been talking about that at the projects committee level and the people involved. So there is an opportunity, not guaranteed, that this $10,000 would also be paid back. But right now, this is funds that we have in the stormwater utility for planning projects for Jeff and other maintenance.
Any other thoughts on that? What else do you use it for?
The stormwater utility?
Yes.
Well, that would be for your catch basins, your storm sewer manholes, ditches, roadside, it could be roadside mowing in an area where there's storm drainage. So we have roughly $90,000 in reserve, 92,000. So what we're asking for is $10,000 on top of the normal budget that we have budgeted this year of stormwater. So what this would do is add $10,000 to Jeff's overall budget, of which $10,000 of my time or Julie's time would come out of there. So it would be, with this approval, then we'd do a budget amendment at the end of the year, end of 2024. But there is the potential we get this money back, which would still be a budget amendment. So it could be a net savings of $10,000 overall for the city. The main idea is to take a little bit of pressure off the general fund where we're hurting the most. And this would help any department that is affected by the general fund.
So we had this, we've had a discussion about that helping to support the police department at this time. Is that still a discussion, or your thoughts on that?
Well, it would help the general fund overall. So what that, the answer is yes, but it also helps the whole general fund. So it just takes we know there's gonna be $10,000 less coming out of that fund if we approve this.
And this is not messing with the operating fund whatsoever. It's, my budget is still the same, it's just adding 10,000 for that. So my budget's gonna stay the same, my operating budget part of it, right?
Yeah, and this is not a penny more to me or anybody else. It's just whether my wages are distributed amongst the different funds, rather than, it's just gonna reduce the amount we're taking from the general fund, take it from stormwater utility, which is like a water or sewer utility, which a portion of my wages come from. And I don't think we've got any coming out of storm at this
No,
time.
we don't.
But this would be project specific for this plan.
And so I just want to clarify, because in our meetings, we have discussed this and moving the funds so we can help other departments. And my understanding was to move the funds to the police department to help fund our officer for one more month until we find out if any of the other pathways we're looking at to save this officer. So would that be the plan?
Well, that would be a separate item you'd have to bring before council if you want to move it into there. Right now, it would just be, so what we had budgeted for 2024 in all the general fund departments. So we're gonna take 10,000 less out of some of the funds that my wages come out of. So that is then available for the general fund in the other departments. Because right now, what we have budgeted in those departments, we're not gonna get that amount coming in. And that's like when Julie gave me the financial report at the last meeting, at the end of March, we're looking at $1,500 left. This could potentially add another 10,000 to that.
I'm sorry, can I ask questions?
Well, are you
have
asking
a
for a
question.
motion? of
Do we
some
have
kind?
a?
I'm asking for approval on item E.
So do we have do we have a motion for approval on item E?
So moved. Could I ask for clarification, what is the approval for? Is it for making the allocation, or is it for pursuing it further in some way?
No, this is to approve item E, which is would be taking my wages out of the stormwater utility rather than the stormwater or general fund.
Part of your wages.
Yes, part of my wages, up to $10,000 maximum.
I think
Have a
Jim
motion.
made the motion, I second it.
Okay, any discussion?
Finally, I can ask questions.
I have a comment too when you're done.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanna make sure I follow. It sounds like some, again, a creative accounting, not intended as a slight. But I just wanted to make sure I followed that. It would have been helpful to have something in writing, so that I could better absorb that. If I understand correctly, the idea is that, your salary, city administrator, is funded through different funds in the city budget. And the general fund is the most fungible pool of money that we have in terms
Yes.
of being able to allocate it to various things without restriction. So that you would instead take more of your salary from a less fungible pool of money for stormwater that is.
It would be a proprietary fund that is an actual utility that can only be used for that.
Right, but it can be used as your admin fee for public works.
Yes.
Right.
Which then we could potentially get that paid back with grant funds.
Right, and so then instead we're just shifting that over to, we're shifting that from the general fund so that we have more money in the general fund, which is more flexible and we can spend
Yes.
more freely. Okay, thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification.
So one thing to remember too is, we don't have, you're not gonna expend that just yet.
No.
We haven't started, so until he starts expending part of his wages for the stormwater fund, his wages still come out of the general fund, so these first few months, we're still in that same boat, that's not gonna affect us till later. And we're still all about the cash flow. These
And-
first few months are tough. we're gonna be sweating bullets to get to May.
And this isn't, this allocation is, moving some things in the budget around. It's not necessarily saying whether we will or won't use that money to fund a
Right.
position.
But it won't get moved right now. When he actually starts working on that, when the grant kicks off, that kind of thing, then as he does it, he'll go into his timesheets and he'll put in, I worked 2 hours on the stormwater plan. Then the system will automatically charge it to stormwater as a portion of his pay.
Okay, and I guess part of my question is knowing that part of the rationale for this is tied in with the, staffing question for the police officer. I'm not sure procedurally, because it's a staffing issue, which my understanding is mostly an executive question, so Linda, I don't know if you need our approval to hire or fire or dismiss or.
My understanding is I don't. However, you know, the goal is to, what has been communicated to me from citizens that our fire and police are of utmost importance. We have opportunity to meet the officer, he's here tonight. We will never in our community be able to hire an officer of this caliber. So we've had, all of us have had meetings trying to be creative. You know, as you said earlier, the chief has worked very hard trying to find ways to keep this officer. And so, you know, there was already a contract put into place that his term with the city will end at the end of January. So yes, things have moved along quickly. I read body language really well. I know people like, I'm new at this. I'm not gonna be perfect at conducting meetings or getting information. I will get better each time, as will all of us. We're all here because we care about this city. And I wanna convey that. And please be patient, please be polite, and please be understanding. And the goal here is to serve these citizens, and we've been working diligently to keep this officer. I don't know if this is going to happen. We are waiting on Oakville and the approval of that. At this time, I don't know what other options. I am not terminating anyone at this time.
So this would potentially create the opportunity to retain that officer, but it's just a, sort of anticipatory or preparatory sort of.
Yes.
It seems above board to me, and,
Yes.
and I would do something so underhanded as to, even if I didn't, think that we should retain the officer, I wouldn't, usurp the authority by not putting forward this otherwise, you know, seems like a very legitimate approach, so,
Yeah,
thank you.
and that, yeah. So,
So I have a question also regarding the allocation. So moving the 10 grand, then you're possibly gonna look at grant money to pay yourself back the $10,000?
Well, not me, it would be the city. We have a grant right now for 400,000 for the two cities. We found out that the two studies for us are gonna be substantially more. I think for us, around 130,000, and Hoquiam, 160 to 180,000 additional is needed. So the prior council set a maximum, a not to exceed amount of $400,000.
Yep.
So right now, if I'm working on that project, we don't have a mechanism for me to build towards that. Well, we could, but it would just take out of Jeff's, excuse me, operating budget, and we don't want to do that. So what we want to do is add 10,000, take 10,000 out of the stormwater reserves. So my time is in partially coming out of there, partially out of sewer, partially out of street, partially out of the other general fund budgets, which is parks and cemetery, but not police or fire. That's your four general fund budgets. So it would reduce my impact on those budgets by taking it out of a utility that's paid for by stormwater rates. And then, but that also being tracked that way, when we get the additional funds to approve or to finalize the comprehensive stormwater plan, we can actually ask for $10,000 to cover admin costs, which would be my costs, or maybe even Julie's for doing the billing and such. So it would be, which we should have had in the beginning, And that was suggested by one of the other city administrators, that we should have done that, but there wasn't enough money at the time. So by doing it this way, then we would basically qualify to get that additional 10,000 back into the stormwater. So overall, net, it's gonna cost the city $10,000 less this year for me than it would have otherwise.
What if we wait till the grant money comes in and the project's fully funded? Would that benefit any of this process?
Some of that money is gonna come out of the general fund, so the net savings would probably be reduced.
Okay.
You know, by how much, I don't know.
And I know we've been talking about this for a couple months now. How is this project gonna help the citizens of Cosmopolis? Is the whole stormwater process, and is it just a survey of our stormwater system?
No, this is looking at if we need pumps. When we did the Mill Creek Dam, this is the next phase, looking at the culverts, this is the Mill Creek multi-objective plan. There's two separate grants we're working on here. One of them is the Mill Creek multi-objective plan, which looks at culverts, stormwater mains, it looks at stream width, it looks at other obstructions in the creek. It also looks at the creek with a hydraulic analysis all the way out to the levee right at the Chehalis River.
Okay.
So that's looking at that and what projects that we could do to improve flooding. Because you probably haven't seen a lot of flooding here lately since the dam has gone in. But there's been times, and people forget about the need for flood control when it's been pretty mild over like the last few years. I've got plenty of pictures and videos showing you like down on 4th and 5th Street and 6th when the water is 1.5 to 2 feet deep and up inside people's homes. So this is gonna help us look at projects for that.
Okay.
The comprehensive stormwater plan is gonna give us a rate analysis for the future, for the next probably 6 to 10 years. It is gonna give Jeff a list of just normal maintenance projects that need to be done, like cleaning catch basins, stormwater mains, stormwater manholes, ditching out certain areas, maybe putting in different pipes in certain areas. And so it's basically gonna also set us up for future grants, like with Department of Ecology, Office of Chehalis Basin, and maybe FEMA as well.
Gotcha.
This is something we've never had. We started the stormwater utility, I think it was 4 years ago? No, it was longer than that. It was a prior council, so it was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
No, it was within the last term.
Okay,
last 4 years, yeah.
so this would basically, we were the last city in Grace Harbor to come up with a stormwater utility. And, you know, we have some pretty bad flooding at times. You know, thankfully, with the dam, when that was completed in 2019, that reduced some of that, but that wasn't the final answer. And so that's why we're doing, you know, these plans.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Or opposed? So moved. Council comment, we're moving on to. Any council comments this evening? We'll start with you, Mr. Skinner.
Not very often, but tonight I don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nguyen?
Not much to say here either. I appreciate everyone's efforts to try to solve some of our financial woes. It's you know, a really enviable position to get to walk into. Wish I was sitting in one of those chairs right about now. Happy to be working with you all. Thank you.
Mr. Spargo?
Thank you everyone for coming out and everyone that's in the Zoom meeting right now. I appreciate everyone being patient with us. We're all learning our new positions and we will get this down. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mr. Collette?
Well, first I want to start off with apologizing to you, Madam Mayor, and to the council and the citizens gathered for my lateness. I had down the wrong time.
That happens. We're working on this, so.
I am for one ashamed. So am I, damn it.
Mr. Andrews, do you have any comments?
Well, I'll just follow what he said, you know, it was 6:15 and I made it.
and we're glad you did.
See, I was late
Thank
too,
you.
Mark, you're off the hook. I appreciate
Thank you. So moving on, public comment, and again, there'll be no questions, just comments, and we're looking forward to Q&As at our next, there will be a town meeting and
Town hall.
town hall meeting, and then we'll have a regular council meeting next month. Any comments?
Vicki Rains, 7 Trinity Way. Comments are a little different than what I had planned to do. I've known and worked with the chief since 1999 when he came on board, and I was sitting in one of your chairs. But when I saw this agenda posted on Facebook, I was pretty taken aback that the city would even try logistically to contract with Oakville and Westport. It really makes no sense to me. As far as I know, the mayor has indicated that police and fire are the most important to the majority of our citizens. But I have to agree with Councilmember Spargo that we have ran with 3 officers. We have had to run with 4 officers. And I'm actually at a loss of how to respond to save $10,000 to move it over to the general fund and use stormwater utility fund to backfill the city administrator's position, and then want to use that fund to retain this officer. I can't, I know there's some behind me, I can't tell you who this officer is. It's not a personal issue at all. You have $1,500 at the end of March. $1,500 at the end of March. Instead of doing that, I would ask that the city council, on behalf of the citizens, myself, and any others that may be concerned, that you look at a broad scope of this. Back in the early 2000s, the city spoke with Chief Maxfield, who's no longer with the city of Aberdeen anymore. And the council chose to maintain a 24-hour coverage with police. But can we afford that? Can we continue to pay that? That's a question that when you hear, $1,500 by the end of March, and the clerk indicated, or finance director, my apologies, indicated that unsure what's gonna happen come May, that's pretty scary. You could probably save $400,000 or $500,000 if you had the chief speak with the city of Aberdeen and look at contracting with the city of Aberdeen. I think that that's an option that needs to be pursued. I think you need to look at all options and put all options on the table. I had to let 2 people go at the county last month in the sheriff's office. Well, I didn't, but Nick's boss did. But I had to work with the budget to be able to make those changes. And there's hard decisions coming up. I'd love to be able to tell you, I spoke to the owner of the pulp mill today. I'd love to be able to tell you that the mill's gonna be open in 3, 4, 5 months. I can't tell you that. First, it was gonna be March of last year, then it was gonna be July, then it was gonna be Labor Day. Then it was gonna be by the end of this year, the end of 2023. But I don't know how you don't take action when you're looking at a $10,000 balance come the end of March, at the end of the first quarter of this year.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I want to, as I said earlier, we know that all of us have walked into a very difficult situation, and we are looking at everything, and you're right. We are gonna have to make some very tough decisions, and we are not going to operate on the premise that that mill is coming back. We can't. We've already gone a year. We have to be creative. We've got to make hard decisions, and I think you've provided some valuable information, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody, because it takes a lot to put yourself out there and to run for office and sit, amongst hecklers like myself. Jim knows, Jim had to put up with me for a long time. But I appreciate you doing that. There's other concerns that I'd love to meet with the mayor, but the agenda came up as a big surprise to me, and that things weren't discussed and weren't more open. And I understand the urgency to try and save a position. And I hate to have to lose people and mess with their livelihood, but something beyond one position has to be done. When I called the mayor yesterday, I asked if the contracts, while I understand Mr. Johnson reviewed the contracts, but have the contracts that are being proposed by, with Oakville and Westport, were they looked at by the insurance pool? As of yesterday, they hadn't been. And are they reviewed as is the city's carrier willing to take on that additional risk? There's lots of questions that need to be asked that I think that, about being able to contract out is a huge thing, or contract with another agency for service here. There has to be a much bigger conversation.
And the chief did look into that, he did, and you missed that conversation earlier, that he did look into the insurance and all of that, and you did provide very helpful information, and anytime, and I'd like to put this out to all of the citizens, I am available, each one of us. You know, social media doesn't stop, no, it doesn't. But again, I want to encourage you, those individuals on Zoom, our audience tonight, come have these conversations. We are available. I have met with citizens this week. I've had numerous phone calls. None of us have all the answers, and you can bring ideas, creativity, input that we appreciate. So please do that.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Any other comment? Candace?
Candace Marcus, 305 G Street. Julie, I'm not aware, because I couldn't hear very well. Was a motion made for transferring the $10,000 of Darren's funds? Was the motion made and then seconded? I just didn't hear it was made.
Yeah.
It was. May I ask who asked?
Yes, it was seconded and carried.
Jim made it and Kim seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle?
Thank you. Michelle Fogus, Alder Drive. I agree with the commissioner in general. We obviously all know there's a serious cash flow problem. We need new revenue. But I also want to express my support of the chief and the mayor and the administrator. I think everyone has looked at all of the options, and I think there are probably very good reasons not to contract with Aberdeen. I think we've seen issues with that with other contracts, and Aberdeen seems to be a very expensive solution to Cosmopolis's problems. So I just wanted to thank you all. I know you've been working extremely hard on all this.
Thank you. Yeah, state your name. Yeah.
825 Second Street, 825 and a half Second Street. Just to bring it to all of the council's attention, the B&O that actually came in 22 was $357,458. That was in 22. 23, the actual was $87,545. So the loss was huge. And that's because of the mill. There is nothing you're gonna be able to replace in this city that mill, I mean, you can't. Utility taxes were half collected. Property, everything because of that mill. So it's gonna be really, really hard. Pape is not gonna ever come close to being able to make up for that mill. So if they come in, they do everybody keeps saying they're gonna do a huge millions of dollars in a building fund. We get a very small little portion of that.
It has to happen first.
Yep, $5,000, $6,000 on a $3 million, $4 million, the plan review, that's what that's gonna be. So it's not like it looks huge, but it's not huge to the city.
Right.
So just wanted you to know.
Thank you. And again, I think we're all very well. And as I said, we cannot operate on the premise that mill is coming back. There are lean times ahead of us and tough decisions. Thank you.
Candace Walker's 305 G Street. I've lived here 50 plus years.
And throughout those years, we have gone from 3 to 4 to sometimes when I first started was like 2. And we've survived. I so agree with the commissioner that we need to do something other than trying to rob Peter to pay Paul.
And I just want to add, when we talk about what was, and we all know the reality, you know, as far as the expense and what we're not going to have, the cash flow, and how we used to have 2 officers, and maybe you didn't have 24 hours and it was like that. The reality is things have changed. Our communities have changed. We have one line separating us from Aberdeen. And this community is a safe community because of the due diligence of our officers. And so with that said, yes, we are trying to do our best, and we know those cuts are coming. But am I ready, I think, or the council to throw our hands up in the air and say, we're done, we just have to cut? We know those cuts are coming. But this community is clean and safe because we do have the coverage. We're not facing what we faced 10 years ago. Things are different. You can walk downtown in the middle of the night, Joe. You wouldn't do that in Aberdeen. There's nothing that separates Aberdeen from Cosmopolis except our police at this time. So, any other comments?
I've got, if we could back up for a minute, I don't know if Nick covered this or not, but I understand it was last week, a former volunteer for the Cosmopolis Fire Department passed away.
Yes,
I don't know how many years of service he had, but
I know it was over 30.
it was over 30. I'd just like to have a moment of silence for Jerry Shapansky.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And yes, we are having some discussion about how we are going to honor that volunteer fireman and a very important person in this community. And there'll be more information going out about that. Thank you, I appreciate that. Any other discussion this evening? So we will adjourn at this time. Please stay if you have questions for any of department heads. If you want to